You want to take a 5-minute break? Anybody need to?
Let's go.
Keep going. Keep going. Okay.
Keep going.
Ministering to grieving offenders. Very important. You do have a handout about this, by the way. What is grief? What is grief? Most people don't even know what grief is. They think they know. We got the nurses in here? Doctors? Okay. Nurses and doctors understand grief better than Christians, unless they are Christians too. Because they deal with grief every day, and grief counselors. So what is grief? Phyllis B. Taylor, a chaplain at the Philadelphia prisons, says this: grief is a process that is often described as a deep wound. Grief is a process that is often described as a deep wound. Grief is a very personal, unique experience, much like a snowflake or a fingerprint. This is a nurse, a registered nurse, who's also a chaplain at the Philadelphia prisons, describing grief. She says grief is like a roller coaster with its ups and downs, or loops that we keep going through over time. Grief is not a smooth path. It is more like a journey that takes time. Every human being experiences loss. Types of grief faced by offenders. It's on your paper. Loss of freedom. Loss of children. Especially women grieve about leaving their children. But men grieve from the loss of children as well. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean loss of them by death. It just means loss of them by separation. Loss of spouse or significant other. Loss of lifestyle. People grieve over losing their lifestyle. Oh, I can't go to the bar no more. They grieve over that. Loss of respect. Loss of love, loss of a loved one to death.
So,
this is the things that people grieve over. Yes.
So Danny, what do you tell?
Where's the mic? Where's the?
Thanks, Pastor. Danny, what do you tell an offender if they come to you and says, I lost my wife, or I lost my mother, and you know for sure that they cannot go to the funeral, they cannot be there?
We're going to cover that.
Okay.
It's in here. Loss of privacy. They grieve over divorce. They grieve over loss of dreams. Loss of hope. Loss of control. They have no more control over their lives. They grieve that. Loss of their rights. These are the things that offenders grieve over. You're going to have to deal with them over these losses. I know you're not a chaplain, but they come to you at the end of a service and they tell you they're grieving, then you're going to have to deal with it. Don't say, oh, go talk to the chaplain. You're going to have to deal with it if you have time. If you don't have the time, send them to see the chaplain. But if you have the time, you must deal with this. Former chaplain Etta Rothman of the Virginia Correctional Center for Women uses the analogy of an onion with its many layers and roots to describe the prisoner's dilemma in trying to get help with her or his grief. She says this: often prisoners are cut off from their roots. Prisoners are cut off from their heritage. They're cut off from their children. They're cut off from their grandchildren. They're cut off from their siblings. They're cut off from their parents. They're cut off from their friends. They're cut off from their significant others. So what do they think I'm cut off from everything. So this is why they begin to grieve. They, prisoners, are forced to develop thick skins. Remember, she's likened it to an onion. Are forced to develop thick skins in order to survive in an evil system. Prison is evil, folks. But they've got to find a way to survive because they are stripped of their defenses. In other words, they're stripped of their protective layers of the onion. Incarcerated offenders often carry many unresolved issues as baggage with them, along with having life-threatening present issues. The possibility of being sexually assaulted over and over again. It happens, folks. There's another film that I want you to see. I'll pass it around later. Where's my other film? All right, somebody's got it. All right, hold on. There's another film. How many of you seen Shawshank Redemption? I have a copy of it. That is one of the best films that I've seen describing prison life. There is another one, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it in a few minutes. There's another one by it's called The Hurricane. The Hurricane. All of you know about the Hurricane. He came from New Jersey. The professional prize fighter. Reuben Hurricane Carter.
Yeah, Denzel Washington played him in the movie.
Yeah. So
you need to see it. If you're from New Jersey and you don't know who the Hurricane is, you really need to see it because it's a good penitentiary movie. Not watching it because Denzel's in it, but it will give you an idea of just what goes on. And you got another one up there too, Redemption. Redemption
is the story of played by Jamie Foxx. The story of the founder of the Crips. Excellent movie. The story of a man who founded the Crips. And the Lord touched his heart while he was locked up. He became a Christian and he pleaded with them not to put him to death, but to allow him to go back out and speak to these gangs. They put him to death anyway. These are excellent movies, folks.
Don't forget the Green Mile.
The Green Mile, I don't put much stock in the Green Mile. That's a good movie. I've seen it, but it's not realistic. Yes. Okay. The possibility. The possibility of being killed simply because someone doesn't like you. That's that possibility. There's always that possibility. Imagine yourself suddenly alone in a foreign land. Think about this. Your body is weary. Your emotions raw. You don't know how to think. You don't know how to stop feeling. You don't know how to start feeling. You don't know what to do. You don't know what not to do. This is what happens when people experiencing grief are behind bars. They just stop feeling. They don't even know how to start. They don't know what to do. They don't know what not to do. So you are there to assist them. Yes.
Look,
wait for the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just not. My voice is so strong. I didn't feel like I need a mic.
Yeah, but he can't translate.
Oh, I can't translate. I'm sorry. I don't speak Spanish. I'm really ashamed of myself. I should have learned. On a sexual assault, you may be doing Bible studies with people, whether it's men or women, and they will come to you and they might say, one person might come to you and say, hey, look, I'm being sexually assaulted all the time and don't nobody pay no attention. Does anybody know what to do? Okay, let me tell you what to do since you don't know what to do. You do not go and tell the God that's in the room with you. What you do is you go you get a hold of your prison ministry leader, as if Danny was your leader, you tell him what this person's been telling you every time you've been coming. He will contact somebody in the prison system that will look into it, that works for the prison system. If you don't know what to do, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's a terrible thing. Believe me, I've seen it firsthand, close up, and it's not something great. But if you don't know what to do, do not tell the guard what this man just told you, or this woman, because you will get them locked up in isolation.
You're getting ahead of me, Mark. You're getting ahead of me.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. But I'm just saying, if you do not know what to do, then don't do nothing. Report it back to your prison ministry leader, and then let it go from there, and they'll handle it. I'm just talking.
That's good. That's good. That's good. I just don't want you to get ahead of me. So.
Oh, I'm not. I just have to see that up there, you know,
okay.
And it happens. So.
Prisoners experiencing grief often feel guilt. They feel guilt. And I'll tell you why in a minute. They feel anger. They feel self-pity. These are the things that they feel when they're experiencing guilt. So they need to know how to come out of feeling this way. Remember I told you, they don't know how they feel. They don't know what to feel. They don't know what not to feel. These are the things that they are feeling. Guilt, anger, self-pity. Yes, sir. Mike. Oh, you guys are smart. You chose the youngest one to run the mic around.
Yeah, I think of my days when I was trained for counseling. They talked about Kubler-Ross's things on loss and grieving, the bargaining, the anger, and all that. Good, but I don't agree with the spiritual conclusion. But some of her pragmatic stuff was right on.
Okay, thank you. If offenders share these feelings with institutional staff, staff thinks that the offender is what? Suicidal. So what do? They put them in the hole. Isolation, segregation. If they share them with other offenders, they think that the offender is weak. So who do they go to? They come to you, the volunteer. You are their link between the community and the prison system. They trust you. So they share with you. Remember this, whether in jail or prison, you have to project that you are strong. Talk about the offender now. They have to project that they are strong and courageous. They have to project that they are strong and courageous. Because otherwise, they have in their mind, somebody may try to take advantage of me. So what does the offender do? He tries to bury the emotions. That's what he does. If he doesn't share them with you, he tries to bury them. What does that do? That only increases the pain. Let's talk about guilt for a few minutes. When a loved one dies, offenders often experience extreme guilt feelings. When a loved one dies and you're in prison, you will experience extreme guilt feelings. We have a caution for you though. This guilt can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. Especially if they couldn't go to the funeral. Especially if they couldn't go to the funeral. It can be overwhelming. And most of the time, the prison system won't allow them to go to the funeral. They don't have the manpower. Because the guard has to go with you. Yep. Don't use the situation to give a Bible study on the state of the dead. Don't do it, folks. That's not what they need right then. So just don't use that situation to explain to them, oh, your loved one is only sleeping. They don't need to hear that. They need to hear that you care, that you're sorry, that you're sorry that this happened to them. Can I pray with you? Not can I pray for you? Can I pray with you? Right then. You may need to help him distinguish between irrational guilt and rational guilt. There are two types of guilt here. Irrational and rational guilt. Let's deal with irrational first. Guilt that is not appropriate to the situation and is often magnified out of proportion. Guilt that is not appropriate to the situation and is often magnified out of proportion. Such as, if only I had visited her one more time before I was locked up. That's irrational guilt. What good that would have accomplished if only I would have visited her one more time before I was locked up. What would that have accomplished? Now you don't ask them what would that have accomplished. Or, if only I had told him that I loved him when he visited me last. These are examples of irrational guilt. In case of irrational or unrealistic guilt, that's what irrational guilt is, unrealistic guilt. In case of it, draw out more feelings from the offender. Get him to talk about how he feels. Avoid telling the offender that his or her guilt is irrational, even though it is. Don't tell them that. Avoid telling them that their guilt is irrational until he or she has had a chance to thoroughly express and work through his or her feelings. What about rational guilt? Can occur if the offender's behavior in relation to the deceased was wrong or hurtful, like if only I hadn't turned him or her on to drugs. That's rational guilt. If only I hadn't, and they died from drug overdose. If only I hadn't turned them on to drugs. You got to deal with that too. You could say in an accepting way something like, you told me about your guilt and I agree that it is very real. You're feeling really bad right now, huh? You're not dealing with it, but you are dealing with it. Are you following me? You're getting him to talk about it more and more. You're getting her to lay it all out. Understand her feelings. This is called reflection. I talk about all of these things in my seminar on active listening. That's a part of the basic training as well, and that is in the manual. In ministering to an offender experiencing guilt, don't use phrases like, don't cry. Let them cry as much as they want to cry. And if you feel like crying with them, cry. Don't say everything will be all right. I suggest to you, everything will never be all right again, especially if it was a mother or a father or a sister or a brother. Everything will never be all right again. Never use those kinds of phrases. Or every cloud has a silver lining. No, it doesn't. But people use them. Adventists use them. We use these phrases. So stop using them, especially when you're dealing with an offender in prison that says, I have a problem. Phrases like these ignore the grief and divert attention away from the offender's true feelings. And in order for them to come to grips with their grief, they're going to have to talk about their true feelings. When the offender uses these or other platitudes, especially, God must have willed it. Have you ever heard somebody say that? God must have willed it. Gently, gently, gently confront the offender. Gently. With a statement such as this. The offender says God must have willed it. You ask a question. Could you tell me more about that? Jesus was terrific in asking questions, wasn't he? Jesus never told people what they wanted to hear. He asked them a question. They told themselves. Learn how to ask questions, folks. Jesus was the greatest psychologist I've ever seen. When platitudes are said by another offender or volunteers, and it appears the offender is disturbed, you remain silent until that person moves on. Don't say, oh no, that's not right. Just stay quiet until that person goes on, or until you get a chance to talk to them about it. Maybe, might not be to the next week. But just don't try to change that what that offender has told this offender. Give you an example. You say, I noticed that when that other person told you not to worry because everything would be all right, it looked as if that bothered you. The offender says, yes, it did. That's easy for him to say, but he didn't lose his wife. Then you say, even though he was trying to be helpful, it hurt, didn't it? What are you doing? You're trying to get him to get these feelings out. Even though he was trying to be helpful, it hurt, didn't it? Always ask the question of this person. You may even want to draw on the Christian resource of forgiveness. The offender can then be assured that God sticks with us and accepts us in our brokenness and our guilt. God accepts us even in our guilt. Get him to understand that. God knows what you're going through. He went through it. When his own son hung and died on that cross, he went through it, brother. God understands you. Try to persuade the offender to go with you to talk with the chaplain. Try to persuade the offender to go with you to talk with the chaplain. If that is not possible, alert staff and the chaplain to the situation as soon as you leave the offender. Why? Because if they're experiencing all of this and you're not able to get them to understand, alert staff. That may be the first person you see. Say, man, I think you need to look after this person because they're going through something.